Greetings, Hyde Park, and Happy New Year. It is the 3rd of January, 2021. It is only a couple of days old. We had hoped to be able to show you a recorded version of the new live stream in the sanctuary, but we weren't quite ready for that. So I've got something in store for us today, kind of a devotional. But I want to begin with a couple of announcements. Starting this week, small groups are returning to Wednesday night. 7 o'clock, Kneeling with Giants, which used to be a Sunday morning class, has now moved to Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock. And the Alpha course, Practical Introduction to the Christian Faith, is returning at 8:30. This is on Wednesdays. And starting next Sunday, January the 10th at 10 a.m., we'll have our first live stream worship service. So continue to stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can stay apprised of our latest recordings. I have a devotional in store for us today, and I want to begin in prayer. So join your hearts with mine. Gracious God, our hope is in you, Lord. Our hope is in all the opportunity that is found in a new year and in a fresh start, as it might be for some. As we consider hope, help us to know that our hope is found in you. Direct us in this time. Guide our steps throughout this entire year. Draw us closer to you. Draw us closer to each other. Amen. Our devotional today is going to talk about the word hope. It's the start of a new year, and I know that hope is on the rise. I know a lot of us have lofty expectations that 2021 has to be heads and shoulders better than 2020. And we're going to start our devotional with a song that comes from the Christmas season, O Holy Night. And there's a key phrase that shows up in two of the verses that I want you to listen to and kind of key in on, and that is the thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices. And I think right now, here in January of 2021, that we kind of have this anticipation. There is this kind of thrill of hope and new opportunities. And I think we are a little bit of a weary world, that after the year that 2020 has been, we are looking for something new to get excited about, that there is a new sense of hope. So enjoy this song. Enjoy the Christmas lights one more time, and really key in on that key phrase of the thrill of hope and the weary world rejoices.
Long lay the world
thrill of hope. The thrill of hope that is found in Jesus Christ. In the song we hear that the angels get it, that it is a great new day full of all the hope that Christ brings. That the salvation of a broken world, the sin that separates us all, in the problem that sin creates, is solved in Christ. That sin is wiped away on a grand new day that is full of joy, that the angels get it, and we're hoping to kind of grasp that same sense of hope. And as we turn the page on the Christmas season and we begin 2021, we're hoping for this great new day. And as we walk into the new year, that we want to bring hope. I found this video from our friends at the Bible Project that really kind of unpack this word hope and give kind of an Old Testament view of hope and a New Testament view of hope, but also to give you an idea of maybe where your hope will be this year. So enjoy this video.
Let's say you want to describe the feeling of anticipating a future that's better than the present. You might be giddy or excited or maybe unsure, but most of us know that experience. We call it hope. It's a state of anticipation, and it's crucial for healthy human existence. And it's a really important concept in the Bible. In fact, there are many words for hope in the ancient languages of the Bible, and they're all fascinating. In the Old Testament, there are two main Hebrew words translated as hope. The first is yachal, which means simply to wait for. Like in the story of Noah and the ark, as the flood waters recede, Noah had to yachal for weeks. The other Hebrew word is kavah, which also means to wait. It's related to the Hebrew word kav, which means cord. When you pull a kav tight, you produce a state of tension until there's release. That's kavah, the feeling of tension and expectation while you wait for something to happen. The prophet Isaiah depicts God as a farmer who plants vines and kavahs for good grapes. Or the prophet Micah talks about farmers who both kavah and yachal for morning dew to give moisture to the land. So in biblical Hebrew, hope is about waiting or expectation. But waiting for what? In the period of Israel's prophets, as the nation was sinking into self-destruction, Isaiah said, "At this moment, the Lord's hiding his face from Israel, so I will kavah for him." The only hope Isaiah had in those dark days was the hope for God himself. You find this same notion of hope all over the book of Psalms, where these words appear over 40 times. In almost every case, what people are waiting for is God. Like in Psalm 130, the poet cries out from a pit of despair, "I kavah for the Lord, let Israel yachal for the Lord, because he's loyal and will redeem Israel from its sins." Biblical hope is based on a person, which makes it different from optimism. Optimism is about choosing to see in any situation how circumstances could work out for the best. But biblical hope is not focused on circumstances. In fact, hopeful people in the Bible often recognize there's no evidence things will get better, but you choose hope anyway. Like the prophet Hosea, he lived in a dark time when Israel was being oppressed by foreign empires, and he chose hope when he said God could turn this valley of trouble into a door of hope, like the day when Israel came up from the land of Egypt. God had surprised his people with redemption back in the days of the Exodus, and he could do so again. So it's God's past faithfulness that motivates hope for the future. You look forward by looking backward, trusting in nothing other than God's character. It's like the poet of Psalm 39 who says, "And now, O Lord, what else can I kavah for? You are my yachal." In the New Testament, the earliest followers of Jesus cultivated the similar habit of hope. They believed that Jesus' life, death, and resurrection was God's surprising response to our slavery to evil and death. The empty tomb opened up a new door of hope, and they used the Greek word elpis to describe this anticipation. The Apostle Peter said that Jesus' resurrection opened up a living hope, that people can be reborn, to become new and different kinds of humans. More than once, the Apostle Paul says the good news about Jesus announces the elpis of glory. In both cases, this elpis is based on a person, the risen Jesus, who has overcome death. And this hope wasn't just for humans. The apostles believed that what happened to Jesus in the resurrection was a foretaste of what God had planned for the whole universe. In Paul's words, it's a hope that creation itself will be liberated from slavery to corruption into freedom when God's children are glorified. So Christian hope is bold. waiting for humanity and the whole universe to be rescued from evil and death. And some would say it's crazy, and maybe it is. But biblical hope isn't optimism based on the odds. It's a choice to wait for God to bring about a future that's as surprising as a crucified man rising from the dead. Christian hope looks back to the risen Jesus in order to look forward. And so we wait. That's what the biblical words for hope are all about.
Hope. The Old Testament view of hope is this kind of waiting for hope, but I also liked this sense of hope that is like the tension and the anticipation of things getting ready to happen. And an Old Testament view of this kind of waiting for God, that you and we are waiting for God, especially in dark days, especially in times where we need to hope for something better. And I love how this video talks in terms of choosing hope anyway. Sometimes it has nothing to do with how God has shown up in the past, but hope is kind of knowing that God is going to show up, and that connection between faith and hope, and this kind of Greek of elpis, this living hope, this New Testament view of hope that is a person, and that hope is found that a new creation is waiting for all of us to be set free from these broken bodies that are subject to decay, that are subject to falling apart, to limbs that don't work like they used to succumb to things like illness. And so this New Testament view of hope requires a sense of boldness, that we are bold in our hope as we wait. And then it circles back to the cross, that we wait and we know that God is going to do great things based on the promise that is found in the empty tomb, that all things will be new. The hope that is waiting in this new year, that it is a new creation that we are moving into, that as much as we want to go back to 2019, and even before all this started, we can't go back. We can't go back to 2019. We can't go back to 1999. We can't go back to 1993. That creation moves forward. And so as we look at this idea of a living hope in the person, in the work of Jesus Christ, we hold on to that sense of renewal and that sense of a new year, the start of new opportunities. And where is your hope in this new year that is but only 3 days old? And I want to reflect a little bit on what my hope for 2021 is. And it begins with worship. That as we move into live streaming of worship and opening up the sanctuary on Sunday mornings, that my hope for the new year is that worship is no longer this one-sided broadcast of me looking out into a camera lens and hoping that you see me on the other side. That is my hope, that soon we can worship together. That I've caught glimpses in Zoom opportunities, as well as even just a couple weeks ago under the tent for Christmas Eve, I got to see my biggest hope of worship, which is families continuing to worship together. That families have been sitting down all throughout this COVID season and trying to figure out how to worship together. It is my hope that worship returns in 2021 in a way that reminds us of who we are worshiping. That we are called in this sense of worship that is found in Psalm 62, that talks about trust in Him in all times. Pour out your hearts to Him, for God is our refuge. And Psalm 62 is all about this sense of hope, where David is, pouring out to God his hopes and his strengths, and his salvation is found in God. But there's that invitation to pour your hearts out to the Lord. That worship is that opportunity where we pour out ourselves into worship, into God, into one another. And if we're feeling disconnected in worship, I almost kind of ask, What are you pouring your heart into right now? You're pouring your heart into your work. You're pouring your heart into things that are only temporary. That is, maybe you look at worship in 2021 as your opportunity to reconnect with a God who loves you, whose your salvation is found in, and to pour your heart into worship. That maybe in 2021, it is my hope that maybe you give some of these discipleship opportunities a try as a part of this new year and new opportunities. The folks that gave some of these small groups a chance in 2020 really grew their faith in what have been, some pretty bleak times. And so I'll encourage you to consider what it might look like to pour your heart into worship, what it might look like to come and get real and to show up and to talk about where you're struggling and what you're having a hard time with in these challenging years of isolation and uncertainty, that maybe you can pour into some of these things and find that you're not empty when this time of worship is over. In these times of discipleship, you're going to find that suddenly you've got so much more in the tank before you even started. So consider your hope in 2021, where it might be in worship and where it might be in discipleship as we grow into a great new year filled with hope.
Hey, thanks for watching this word study video by the Bible Project. We make lots of other videos, and they're all about showing how the Bible is a unified story that leads to Jesus.
You can go to our website, thebibleproject.com, see what we're working on, and even jump in to pitch in a few bucks to the next one. Thanks for being a part of this with us.
Thanks, you guys.